Okay.
How many do we need for a quorum?
5, which I believe we're at.
We got 4.
Oh, no, wait, sorry. I was counting myself for a very dumb reason.
Okay. Do we want to wait a few minutes?
Yeah, let's give it, usually we do 10, we usually give about quarter past. Since we're starting this late, I'm willing to take it till 4:20. Just, I like to put a little number on at the end so it doesn't go too long. Unfortunately, we can't do anything like deliberations just yet. But I can make a couple of announcements if you guys want to hear that while we kill some time.
Sure.
As the announcement is me talking to you guys, it does not technically count as deliberation on human service matters. Amanda Wright could not be here tonight. She had a board meeting late. She did ask me to do a very, very brief and skeletal outline of the crisis, the changes to crisis.
Thank you.
Sue, are you dialed into that too? You might know about as much as I do about it.
I am not on the inside or
Okay.
even adjacent at this point.
I know that, so the state of Massachusetts added a new provision to the mental health law, which included something called a community-based health center or health clinic. It's essentially one contract awarded to nonprofits. Oh, perfect. And then since we are now at quorum, I'm going to shut up and let you guys get going.
Okay. All righty. I'm going to start with the recording. Just 1 second. One disappeared on here. Hold on 1 second. Here we go.
On July 16th, 2022, Governor Baker signed into law an act relative to extending certain state of emergency accommodations, which among other things extends the expiration of the provisions pertaining to the open meeting law to March 31st, 2023. Specifically, this extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the public body physically present at the meeting location, and to provide alternative access to remote meetings. That does not make any new changes to open meeting law other than extending the expiration of the temporary provisions regarding remote meetings.
Okay. Good afternoon. This open public meeting of the Council for Human Services being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will most likely not have public comment. For this meeting of the Council for Human Services is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town website, identifying how the public may join in. Please note that this meeting is being recorded, that all attendees participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials have been provided. Members of this body are available on the town website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we go there, please let me cover some ground rules for effective and clear communication. I, the chair for today, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each to name by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when not speaking. Remember to speak clearly in a way that helps guarantee accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, which I don't think that we will have today, so I will skip that. So I am now going to go to the roll call. So as a preliminary matter, this is Veronica Golchik, me, and I'm co-chair of the Council for Human Services. Appelin Sweeney sends her regards and her regrets that she could not attend today. She had a change in travel plans that has her on the ferry at the moment. So please permit me to confirm that all members are present and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. So I will start with Suzanne Keating.
Here.
Stu Mythanen. Did I
Pretty
pronounce
close.
Mythanen?
Mintonen.
Mintonen, thank you. Okay,
Present.
thank you. And Jennifer Porter,
Here.
thank you. And Tara Restieri,
Here.
good, thank you. And staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Jericho Melee,
In attendance.
okay, thank you. And we do have a speaker today, and I'd like to ask Dr. Kamal McCarthy to be recognized.
I'm here.
Very good, thank you. We appreciate your attendance today. So I do believe we have a quorum. We have 1, 2, 3, there's 5 of us. So we can begin with our agenda. The first thing on our agenda is a revision of the media reporting project. And, you know, this has been in discussion for quite some time. And at last month's meeting, we did discuss that it would be thought about. So at this point, we are inviting Jason from the current Grizzetti to our next meeting, that we can have an open discussion with him on the topic. He has expressed interest in attending, and we, in Athlon and I, in discussing, thought that this would at least get us off the ground, and let's just see where this goes. So that's just an update on this project that has been discussed, poked, prodded, etc., and just hasn't moved forward. So hopefully on our next meeting, and I believe the next meeting date will be March 16th at 4 p.m. So that'll be 1 month from today. All right. Any comment on that from board members?
Will that meeting be in person or will it be Zoom?
Jericho?
I can reserve the trailer for a hybrid meeting, and that would likely be the best way to approach that. I believe Jason and one of his co-writers will be coming on to discuss their personal relationship with police reporting on the island, as well as how they feel the changes that we've discussed previously around social media, etc. Maybe we'll be changing the way we discuss about reporting crimes in the media. He basically tomorrow when I head into work, I'll reach out to him and try and set that up, as long as we're all good for that date of March 16th. Because I know previously we tried to get several people to come in. He replied, and then we couldn't meet quorum, and I don't want that to happen again.
Jennifer?
I'm not available. I'm on a plane at that time.
We can finesse the date and time if necessary. Is it going to be an all-day trip for you, Jennifer?
No, it's just that afternoon. I'm happy to look again. And don't reschedule on my account, but if it affects quorum, et cetera, I have a flight that'll go from 2 to about 6:30.
Okay. I'll have Ann send a couple of messages out just so we can get confirmation from other members, so that we can hopefully get that going at that date and time.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
And that is basically it for me on that particular one.
Okay, and thank you for setting up a hybrid on that, because I do think that if people are on island and can participate in the hybrid situation with being in the trailer and then on Zoom, I think that it would make it potentially a more vibrant conversation, potentially. Right, and I guess we have to wait until March 31st when our new governor either extends or doesn't. Do you have any word on that, Jericho? Nothing?
No, my suspicion is that they will adopt rules relatively similar to now, with a hybrid option being possible, but what that looks like, or any regulatory or open meeting law variation that brings, I do not know.
Okay. But before I assume that before we end our next meeting, we should have some direction in that, but we can do hybrid for March 16th, if the meeting is happening on that day. So we'll look for Ann's emails on that. Okay. Thank you. All right. Tara?
Yeah, that week I would have to be hybrid. That's my daughter's spring break. So we're going to be in Florida.
Okay.
So I would have to be.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think we can, I'll float a couple of potential, I'll float the Thursday, the Thursday after as well, to
Okay,
see if
great.
that'll work.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to keep to this Thursday afternoon schedule. It's possible we can roll it back later in the evening if you want to, or we can do it during work hours too, whichever works out better for everybody.
Thank you. All right, going to go to the next, which is Jericho, you're on with a director's update.
Yes, but in the interest of respecting Kamal's time, I'm happy to move myself until after his DEI update, if that works for him.
Sure,
Dr.
I can go
McCarthy,
now.
is that good?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I'd like to just do a little introduction of you, Kamal McCarthy. I guess a couple of months ago, we had a discussion at one of our meetings just with, as I've tried to frame it in my mind, of the health of a community is one that embraces diversity, inclusion. You know, we were bouncing around some ideas of, are there ways that the Council for Human Services could get involved with some of the work that you're doing, and maybe we can come up with some ideas of helping to create a better community. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to you. And if you can give us an overview of what you do and what your department does, that would be wonderful.
It will be my pleasure. I have a PowerPoint, so hopefully I'll cover all those things as well. Let me try to share my screen and hope this works. Can everyone see that?
Yes,
Yes.
Perfect.
thank you.
All right, I am going to minimize the bar of guests. Thank you all for being here and having me. Veronica, you are the lucky winner. So you're the only person I can see right now so that I can see my whole screen. So if I, for some odd reason, I'm going too fast or want me to stop, just wave your hands and I'll see you and take it from there.
Okay.
Jericho, thanks for inviting me. Council, thanks for having me. So the whole point of this presentation is to give everyone just a quick review of the DEI office work that I'm doing. And the ending actually is some suggestions on how I think the DEI office and the Council of Human Services can work together going forward. So hopefully, Veronica, I'll be answering that specific part that you mentioned a second ago. So the objective and agenda, Jericho invited me to give the council an update. If he had told me it was being recorded, perhaps I would have turned it down. I don't like being recorded, but here I am anyways. And the goal is to share some of the DEI goals, some progress of the department. And he asked me to tell us about like how the DEI and the council can collaborate going forward. So in this presentation, I'm going to do some definitions and go over what diversity, equity, and inclusion means. And the goal here is to create some common language and understanding for all of us to basically be on the same page. I'm going to give a DEI strategic plan update, and the goal here is to demonstrate the town's efforts to practice DEI and the principles of DEI. As I just mentioned, specifically to Veronica's point, I will be talking about the intersection of DEI and human services to spotlight areas for collaboration or opportunities for that collaboration. And then the last thing I'm going to cover is DEI trends and topics, specifically giving us like a look ahead of the evolution of DEI work, so we can all know what to like mentally prepare for what may or may not be coming down the pipeline. Veronica, also, when I get nervous, I speak really fast. So again, just if you wave a hand, I'll know that you're telling me to slow down. But let's start off by telling you a little bit about myself. I think that's a good starting point. So I immigrated to Nantucket in 2000 from the wonderful island of Jamaica. Island hop to this one. Graduated from Nantucket High School as well and middle school. Graduated from Nantucket High School in 2005. After high school, I did my undergrad at Bates, got my master's from UMass, and I just recently finished my Doctor of Education degree from Northeastern University. Before joining the town, I worked at the Museum of African American History and at the Nantucket Athenaeum. And just some random facts about travel. When I was at Bates, I went to Jamaica, Vietnam, and Hungary. When I was at UMass, I went to Argentina for a course in, what was it in? Work cooperatives, I believe, and architecture. The pair were a husband and wife team, so work cooperative and architecture. Not really sure how they connect to this day, but I was there for the labor studies aspect specifically. Personally, I've been to Croatia, England, and just a couple other spaces throughout Europe. And then most recently, I worked at a Christian college in Lithuania for 2 months. So, and that was right before COVID. So what is DEI? What is DEI all about? Some of this information may be repetitive, and I apologize for that if it is, but I still think it's important to go through this as well. So I'm sure all of us here are aware that DEI is an abbreviation for diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI are interconnected concepts, but they all have distinct purposes. They all have distinct values and reasons why they're a part of the overall acronym. I work with the field of municipal DEI, which encompasses all aspects of public interactions and services provided by the town and town government. And it aims to ensure that all are treated both equally and equitably. I'm gonna stop right here really quickly for like 2 seconds and mention that, or repeat rather, that I work with municipal DEI. I do not work in healthcare with DEI, for example, or healthcare or I just said healthcare, or DEI in education. So I want to specifically highlight that my field or focus is primarily the field of municipal DEI. All DEI practitioners, regardless of what your field you're in, generally have a wide range of responsibilities, such as implementing and monitoring training programs. Some of us review town policies and practices, as well as just assist departments with their own DEI objectives. Honestly, I do not know much about what the Health and Human Services Department is all about, as much as Jericho and I are work colleagues and friends. But at the same time, I would be working with Jericho, working with Roberto, to better understand what they want for DEI in their department. And me being here for this council meeting today is pretty much like along those lines. So let's go over some definitions, very specific definitions really quickly. Diversity is any dimension that can be used to differentiate groups and people from one another. It also means respect for and appreciation of our differences. Diversity specifically focuses on representation, and it can be measured through numbers or by tracking demographic classifications. So for example, our gender, our age, our socioeconomic status, as you may define it. Those are all things that contribute to the diversity focusing specifically on representation. When someone asks you to enact or use your diversity lens, you're really focusing on and asking questions such as who is in the room, or how many more identity groups do we have this year in compared to last year? So that's diversity in one slide in a quick nutshell. Equity. Equity is consistent and systematic, fair, just, and impartial treatment of all individuals, including individuals who belong to underserved communities that have been denied such treatment. Equity focuses on changing structures of power and privilege, so disparities of historically underrepresented groups are eliminated, or we at least work towards trying to eliminate those disparities. And one of the first steps is to identify those disparities. When someone asks you to use your equity lens to look at or focus on any issue, really, we're really asking you to focus on who is trying to get into the room but can't, and more specifically, what obstacles are preventing admission to the room. Or you can ask yourself, what conditions have we created that maintain certain groups as the majority in X space? You can almost think of any space, really, when you're thinking about like, what are the conditions that we have set up that prevents others from coming in? I don't know why, but NASA just popped into my head. So what are the reasons why we are not like, why, let's say the NASA staff isn't 50% women, if that may be a goal that the country wanted to reach. I'm just randomly throwing that out there. Tara, I'm going to save the questions for the end, if that's okay. So if you don't mind, just jot it down really quickly and I'll come back to it, unless it's extremely important and I can stop. What would you prefer?
I just wanted to know if you're going to share these slides with us so I can stop feverishly writing notes.
I will send it to Jericho, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. That was my question also.
Okay. All right. Veronica, you're still the winner. I'm moving forward. Inclusion. Inclusion is a state of being valued, respected, and supported. It's about focusing on the needs of every individual and ensuring that the right conditions are in place for each person to achieve his or her full potential, or they, sorry. Inclusion focuses on participation. It is usually achieved when diverse populations are involved in decision-making that impacts the policies and practices of your overall organization. When someone asks you to enact your inclusion lens, you're kind of focusing on, has everyone's ideas been heard? And is this environment safe for everyone to feel like they belong? So those are the type of questions that you can ask when you're thinking about inclusion. And I hope at this point you can see the difference between the questions that diversity, equity, and inclusion focuses on. I will go a little bit further into that. I want to share really quickly that these definitions were provided by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the White House, and specifically some of this information was shared by Tangible Development, which are the consultants out of New York that we're working with right now for developing our strategic plan. This is my favorite visualization of DEI. I won't spend too much time on it, but I think it gives us a good understanding of what this field and work is all about. The last time I gave this presentation, I asked someone to place Nantucket on this chart. We're not going to do that today. I won't force the council to do this. But I guess what I'm getting at is the reason this is my favorite representation is because it has us question whether or not we live in a world of inequality, a world of equality. Do we want to live in a world of equity, or do we want to live in a world of justice? Let me just go through them really quickly again. So inequality is the unequal access to opportunities. You can almost literally see that, like for the tree that we're looking at, all the fruits are on one side. Do we want to live in a world of equality where everything is evenly distributed, tools and assistance? So everybody needs a ladder, so everybody gets the same size ladder. Everybody needs a bag to put the apples in, so everybody gets a bag. If I may stop really quickly, I know we're being recorded, but I would say generally this is where we are, or generally this is what we want, like as a society, that like everybody is treated equally. Excuse me. Sorry. But what I focus on primarily right now is this idea of equity, getting the customs tools that are identified to address inequality. There's nothing I can do about the tree and the fruits that are on the tree. But if we give the individual a taller ladder to reach the fruits that are on his side of the tree, that's not necessarily going against the person who doesn't need a taller ladder necessarily. But at the same time, we're trying to provide the tools that one needs to set an equal playing field. I hope that makes sense. And then there's a whole other thing that we can be working on, which is justice, which is fixing the system to offer equal access to both tools and opportunities. Justice is a bit further than the work I do right now, and I'll explain that a little bit later on. But is that the world that we're working towards or want to live in? So I'm going to start by just saying that this is my favorite visualization. There are many other visualizations out there about what DEI is all about. So as for our strategic plan update, we are continuing our consultation with the group I just mentioned, Tangible Development. It's been a year now, and it ends pretty soon. It's going very well, by the way. The town received its first DEI assessment report in August of 2022, and that's available on the town website. A lot of fascinating information was learned in there. This entire presentation could be just about the assessment. However, a presentation on the assessment was done at a select board meeting, and I can give you the date and link to that specifically if you wanted to find out that information as well. So with assistance from our consultants, we have started an internal DEI committee. It is made up it's made up only of town employees, and we meet on a monthly basis just to chat about DEI stuff that relates to the town. Right now, we have some professional development opportunities underway for staff. We are offering specifically 4 DEI workshops on inclusive leadership, implicit bias, exploring identity and DEI, and how to be an engaged ally. Separately from these workshops that the consultants are doing on our behalf, we also have another workshop on microaggression. And it's important to note that after the consultants leave, that all of these trainings will be done in-house by yours truly and or someone in the DEI office. The consultation ends this April. Is this the last? Oh, one more. Okay. And after the consultation, the primary next step is the implementation of the strategic plan. So I believe it's a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. And so I'll be working towards like the things that are outlined or the benchmarks to reach for the first 2 years of the plan. So how can we work together? Well, what I did was I went online and I was just like, what does the council actually do? I should know this because I've been here for almost 2 years now, but still just do your research. So one of the things I found out on the town website is that the council conducts studies and makes recommendations on efficient and cost-effective methods for coordination and delivery of necessary human services. I had to sit back for a while and be like, let me deconstruct this. How can we actually work together? Well, the DEI office can assist with doing a deep dive into equity on what does it mean to deliver the necessary human services. For example, are all types of human services that are available to all residents listed in one central location, and is it easily translatable? So we all know that there is a diverse population here in Nantucket. I'm assuming that this is already a yes, and this is already done, but this is just one example as to how we could work together or can work together in the future. Another thing I saw is that the council conducts public hearings to assess the human services needs for the health and welfare of the residents, making reports and recommendations based upon such public input. I believe this was almost talked about a little bit earlier in this meeting. DEI can assist by spotlighting both diversity and inclusion throughout such a study, ensuring that the people with disability, people of color, and others are included and also valued in such an assessment on human services needs. I think this is my last slide on how we could potentially work together. The council review and reports on the proposed legislation and regulations that may impact human services needs of the town residents. And one way that we could work together, if this was something we were to focus on, is that DEI can help to develop new lens of comprehension. And by that, I mean, like, how does a specific legislation or regulation impact the council's objective on DEI? So I guess what I'm getting at there is, let's say, for example, the council decides, I don't know, 6 months from now that these 3 points are the things that we want to work on as it relates to DEI. And then the good old Commonwealth of Massachusetts just throws down a law or regulation for us to for the council to follow. One of the things that we can do together is to like ask those focus questions when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion to see how the law is going to impact what you want to accomplish or what you've already set out for yourselves. So those are just the 3 examples that I thought of really quickly by specifically looking at the town website and what the council is responsible for and thinking about how we could assist each other. I believe we're going into the DEI trends and topics. So this is my last, I believe this is one of the last slides. So this is also the slide that I get in trouble with a little bit. So don't tell on me. But some of you may notice positions like a DEIA director. The A usually stands for accessibility. And accessibility is specifically talking about accountability and accommodations for all abilities. So primarily, it's really focusing on visible disabilities, someone in a wheelchair, someone with crutches. However, it can also include things that are unseen. For example, the world is a pretty right-handed world. The left-handedness is not necessarily like a visibility that we, an accessibility, sorry, that we even think about necessarily, but stuff that are unseen, such as that, or chronic pain, for examples, these are all contributed to accessibility. You may also see the DEIB director, or anything that the B really stands for belonging. And belonging is really focusing on the ongoing culture created to have all people feel included and feel welcome. And justice specifically, so again, if you hear about a JEDI director, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, the justice, the J, is primarily focusing on work that focuses on systemic change, work to right like historical wrongs of the past. And so some examples are branches of the justice is really like environmental justice, or restorative justice, or social justice. So I mentioned earlier that I somewhat get in trouble when I get to this bulletin specifically, and that is because I disagree with some of my DEI practitioners. I'm a part of the Massachusetts DEI Commonwealth group of DEI practitioners, and some of them are really adamant that belonging needs to be in your job title. You are the DEIB director. Personally, I disagree with that. I personally believe belonging is a subset of the inclusion work that one is supposed to be doing. I don't think I necessarily need to be the DEIB director, because if I'm truly dedicated to the principles of inclusion specifically, belonging is already a part of that. Accessibility, if I'm truly dedicated to equity and making sure that equity is practiced throughout, I think accessibility is a part of the equity conversation as well. So I don't necessarily think I need to be the DEIA or DEIB director. I think DEI is more than enough. However, there is an argument to be made for justice. There is, I think, I could be wrong, but there is an argument to be made to the extent to which we are responsible for focusing on systematic change as a society. But if we think about justice even a bit further, environmental justice, restorative or social justice campaigns, all of them really have some aspects of law attached to it. And just for me anyways, you almost need like some experience with law, whether you are, I don't know, someone who works with a police department in some non-police role or an actual lawyer, then perhaps in that route you can be doing true justice work. That's not to take away from the fact that a DEI director can certainly be working on environmental justice or restorative justice. So I'm gonna leave it there before I get into any more trouble for saying anything else. But I just wanted to show that the evolution of DEI work is ongoing, that the work continues, and it's, for some, it's more than just DEI, and then for others, it is DEI and the many subsets that come with that acronym.
Okay, thank you. Kamal.
I'm
Yes.
almost finished.
Okay.
So the cultural topics for us to all look out for will always be combating the rise of anti-Semitism, and it is important that we continue to mitigate unconscious bias within all of us. Some municipal trends really quickly. Equity in town budgets. I am not a finance person, but that is one of the things that DEI will be focusing on, as well as diverse participation in public government. And I specifically mean like whether that's running for office or signing up for committees or boards or what have you. These would be my questions to the audience. If you don't mind, I'll just read them really quickly. I will end my slideshow, so we don't actually have to look at this the whole time. But does this presentation enhance your understanding of DEI? I would love for someone to describe one thing they learned. Obviously, you don't have to. What are some of your expectations for the office? That would be helpful for me. What would you like the office to be working on? I would love to know what would be a metric or benchmark you would use to measure DEI success. Thankfully, we have consultants to be working on that right now, but that's been one of the biggest questions that we have been trying to like answer. Because a lot of this work is qualitative, even though there are quantitative aspects to it. How would you judge it or make metrics for it? And more importantly, apart from me slowing down, how can this presentation be improved? That is the end. This is my contact information. Jericho, thanks for inviting me. Council, thanks for having me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Okay. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. And I do think that there is a place for us to be working together. And if I can start out with some of my questions and then we'll turn to the rest. You mentioned that you are a municipal DEI person. Does that, necessarily make your working with us different, separate? Because we are part of the municipal, but we are not necessarily doing some of the work that you're working with the town as far as making sure that we have representation in our police department, in our, all the way through our government. So I guess I'm struggling a little bit with that.
So I think if I understand your question correctly, how well do I work with the council, or can I work with the council?
But is it separate of having, DEI work in, say, our not-for-profit organizations,
Okay.
which are supported in part by the town tax stream?
So I specifically work with literally anything related to town government. So let me, I guess that's the best way of answering that. Take the school, for example. Technically, when I joined, the school teachers were not a part of our strategic plan surveying, because DEI in education is like literally a beast on its own. However, if the superintendent were to call me up about in regards to anything DEI related, I would automatically respond. My supervisor would expect me to go participate in that. So all boards, all councils, commissions, what have you, if any of them wanted to reach out to the DEI office, I would happily see how I could assist.
Okay, great. Your apple tree graphic is excellent because it really nails concepts that are sometimes difficult to explain or to put into words. So I would definitely keep that in your presentation for sure. And with regard to belonging and accessibility, I think that it's true. Yes, it is under the big umbrella, but having you break that out sort of in my mind said, yes, everything is belonging, everything is accessibility. It's good to have that in the presentation, but I understand that to have a separate thing belonging, because everything should be belonging, everything should be accessible. So I will turn it over to anyone else who has questions, comments. Tara?
I agree with everything that Veronica said. I do actually, I agree. I like breaking out accessibility and belonging because again, it emphasizes any opportunity to emphasize the ability to be inclusive is important. So a question I have to you, because it's often something that, we struggle with, is that qualitative versus quantitative measurement. And unfortunately, on a municipal level, I can tell you that I always find it hard to get or to capture the eye of those, in many ways, those that are involved in the budgetary process without having the quantitative data. So how do you balance that in terms of getting your point, getting that measurable outcome, understanding the successes, but also sort of dealing with your constituents who, we need to help fund and the programs and the work that you're doing.
That's an excellent question. So I am a qualitative researcher by training. So quantitative research is not really what I do. I can do some basics of it. So I really focus on words and people's experiences. And yes, I do, of course, try to make it as relatable as possible to the individual or the groups that I am working with. So excuse me, and I apologize for this, but I'm in a virtual space right now with majority women, if that's okay for me to say. And for some reason, I was just like, oh, NASA. It's not like I know that there are hundreds and thousands of women scientists out there in the world. However, NASA itself doesn't recognize the talent of women, or more, maybe there would be more. So it's making sure that that qualitative information can be quantitatively represented. And if it, at very minimum, just painting a picture usually is more helpful. So that's the route I go. I know that America, Nantucket, the world in general is a very quantitative world. We like numbers. We like things that we can grab onto that are tangible. It's 5 or 10 or whatever it may be. But at the same time, for me anyways, the stories of 5 single fathers are equally significant as knowing that 5 single fathers need X amount of money to be good parents. Sorry, I don't know where that came from. I'm just speaking out off the cuff right now, because you can't really understand what these fathers are going to need really without actually talking to them. Yes, I don't know, $100,000 salary may be great, but what are they using that salary for? Is it for medicine and this and that and so forth? And then my job, I think, is to take that narrative, that personal experience, and make it in a way that we're all be able to relate to. So that's my work when it comes to quantitative versus qualitative.
A second question that I have, I also want to say that I think the presentation is excellent. I don't really think you actually speak too fast. I think it's okay.
It's my number one complaint that I get.
Oh, well, don't worry about it. But my second question would be, oh gosh, now I'm forgetting what my second question was. What would you in terms of Nantucket? What do you see as what are the outcomes that you've seen so far that have been really impactful? And what do you think is missing? What would be the top things that where you've seen success, and what do you think is really missing when it comes to impacting, DEI in the municipality?
I think as far as a successful impact, a couple things. The assessment is one of those successes. First of all, it's our first DEI assessment report. It's only 25 pages for information, but if you look at the entire study, it's 150 pages. But you don't have to read all 150, just the first 25 and you're good. The rest of it is primarily appendix. But the DEIC, the committee as well too, has been very eye-opening to me. For me personally, it's been quite a surprise that these members, I've tried to give them opportunities to either meet virtually or we don't need to meet this week because we've answered this question already for the department. And they're like, no, we want to meet on a monthly basis and have our discussions. And that has blown my mind. I was never expecting that whatsoever, that people would be interested in wanting to have these discussions and meet on a monthly basis to find out how they themselves can help the work move forward. And also just have conversations that are quite honestly can be uncomfortable, but be they know for a fact that they're in a safe space to have an uncomfortable conversation and that we're here to support each other. So that's one of the main things that I found very surprising. They also love icebreakers. I'm obsessed with icebreakers. I like icebreakers too. So I think icebreakers sets the mood. We all learn something about each other. We all Sorry, I'm going to digress really quickly, but I did a presentation in December at the Nantucket Police Department, and I had 4 icebreaker questions. And the entire time I was up there, I was standing there sweaty and uncomfortable and just not really feeling like I belonged, even though it's the safest place that I could be at that time. And when I was there, I asked 4 questions what was your favorite subject in high school? What's your favorite ice cream? Who's your favorite Disney character? I believe was one of them, and something about sports. A wide range of questions. To watch grown men and women that are responsible for public safety talk about Cow Chow ice cream or their favorite character being Simba just put a brand new lens for me on the police department. It truly did. I don't even remember what I said, but that was my main takeaway, was the icebreaker questions. So to truly watch that people are willing to participate, but people want to share. If they have an environment or space that they are allowed to share, and more importantly, allowed to make mistakes as well too. So, and not feel like they're going to be yelled at or like thrown under a bus or something. So I've learned a lot. This position has been very like just eye-opening for me, not only about DEI, but the community itself. Like people progress, like generally truly want to work together to move forward. So I think that's an excellent question. I could go on for a while. For example, we're acknowledging different cultural celebrations. We did something for Juneteenth recently. We will be having, I believe, something coming up in March that will be honoring the African Meeting House, because March will be 5 years since the vandalism. So myself, Dr. Francis Cartoonan, Barbara Ann White, as well as Desiree Spriggs, who works at the museum, will all be coming together to do a presentation at some point soon. I believe it's March 10th. Actually, no, I'm taking the lead on it. So there are multiple different things that I could go off on. I think that's an excellent question. When I just got the position, it felt overbearing. I was like, there's like over a dozen departments, and I was supposed to be the DI guy in all of them. And I don't really know what the sewer does versus what the, I don't know, again, Health and Human Services does. But at the same time, it's also interesting to watch department heads also reach out when they need to, offer support more importantly as well too. And quite frankly, I think employees know that I'm here. Employees come into the office and stop by if it's just to say hello, or even if they do have a complaint. So clearly I can go off on this question for a while, so I'm gonna stop talking now, but that was a wonderful question. Thank you.
Okay.
I hope I've demonstrated that I like my job.
Yeah.
It comes
Definitely.
through. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Anyone else? Suzanne?
I don't really have a question so much as a couple of comments. I thought that was an excellent presentation. And I too loved the illustration. I'm a visual person. And so putting the visuals with the definitions, it just brought it home for me. I don't have to think now, wait, what are those definitions? And I think that works with, anybody, it doesn't matter what age or background, or I think it's helpful. Thank you. And I liked when you were talking about, how we could collaborate. Wait a minute, let me see. I flipped the page on myself. Yeah, the intersection of the council and what you do under the trends and topics, accessibility, accountability, and accommodation, how some things are primarily visible and others are not. And that's something that I am really noticing a lot lately, with different people. And I work at the library now part-time. And so I was pretty much out of town for a long time. And now I'm in town and I'm seeing a lot of people and different people and people with different needs. And you don't know until you talk to someone that they're in chronic pain, or that they can't, whatever. And even myself, I take the elevator to the third floor because I have a knee that it doesn't like going up the stairs, and I don't want to take all day doing it. So I'll go up the elevator, but it's so interesting to have the idea of diversity and equity and inclusion as part of our approach on this council, I think, because that's the thing that concerns me the most. If we're wanting to have everybody have a healthy community, then your working with us, I think, is, well, I'll say magnificent,
Thank you.
I look
So
forward
thank
to
you.
helping in any way I can.
Thank you.
Okay. Sue? Sue?
Sorry, had to find my mute button.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say a quick thank you. I've heard you speak at a couple of different groups in the course of the last year or so. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk with as many different groups as possible. And that I really appreciated the accessibility. Kind of like Suzanne said, I do a lot of work with the homeless, and I think about accessibility to things for them quite a bit. I think about senior citizens and accessibility to things for them as well. I mean, we've all walked the sidewalks in town. It's a little wacky. So I like that, knowing that those are on your radar and that you're just, yeah, you're working your way through. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. They're there for sure. And it's a lot of information out there. And putting it in a way like it can be understandable and accessible, literally, to everyone is equally important as well for me. So thanks for saying that.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer?
I just want to echo everyone's thanks, Kamal. That was excellent. And I'm a fellow Bates Bobcat.
Hey!
So if you ever want a Bates hug, we're here year round. I'm happy
That
to
was a
have
great day to
coffee
be a
and share
Bobcat.
stories.
Okay. Kamal, you mentioned in your presentation or when you were talking about a workshop on microaggression. A few years ago during COVID, trying to keep some of my sanity, I watched everything online that I possibly could get my hands on or my ears and eyes on. And I don't know if it was the Chamber of Commerce, but someone sponsored a workshop on microaggression. And I remember participating at home, sitting on my couch, watching this. And by the end of it, my head exploded because it was such a load of information and just things that we do every day that we don't realize. And it brought me back to a previous life of mine where I spent a fair amount of time in a school district trying to train, and I don't even want to say train, but cultural competency was the buzzword of probably 15, 20 years ago, and just trying to get everyone to understand that maybe when you want to do a Mother's Day activity in your class, not everyone has a mother. So you don't want someone to feel left out if you're making a heart that's gushing that is, to mom, to make sure that you include everyone and everyone's different, their diversity. So I would love to see a presentation on microaggressions and to make it available to anyone who would want it in the town and that lives on Nantucket, because I think that is part of where I view that we have a major challenge. So if we can work somehow along with that, I would love that.
I definitely think that's feasible. You are correct. The Chamber of Commerce, as well as the town, did sponsor a microaggression workshop by Stephen Young, and his book is what we used for the workshop that we now have here. So to whatever extent we can do something together, I'm sure we can figure it out. Right now, it's more of a long-term mini workshop where reading the book and answering questions and so forth are a part of it. But doing a presentation for an hour and a half specifically on microaggression is something else that could evolve from having this conversation with you. So for sure, it's something that we can look into.
Right. And, I think that when we started talking about this last summer, I had gone through 4 or 5 days of just being in and about town, riding the wave, going into a shop, going to do some of my volunteer work. And I just kept going, ouch. I was seeing interactions that I felt was not appropriate. And, I'm trying to figure out how, and I'm just going to use an example of a bus driver who may not have treated someone as respectfully as they treated someone else. And I'm struggling with myself, where do I go up to the bus driver and say, do you realize what you just did? When, the bus driver can turn and look at me and say, mind your own business. But you know, where can we reach everyone on the island? Because, you know, I look that, you know, this is our community, and our community grows during the summertime, and we embrace our summer visitors because they make our island part of what we are, and our year-round residents and our occasional visitors. Everyone should be treated with the same respect. So I look at that microaggression as sort of like one way that how can we help train people, because it's sort of a finer definition in some ways of just our daily interactions, and how you can put someone off by, you know, a tone of voice or an inflection. So.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And also, I'll point out two things really quickly. One, I think Nantucket and generally people who care about equality and equity and so forth, I think us recognizing certain acts or actions that we are like, ooh, that make us like squeeze our jaws together, or like, ooh, I don't know if should I say something or what have you. Just having those spider senses, let's call it that, like go off when we see those interactions happening. I think that's one of the best first steps, because if you don't recognize it, or you think the behavior that you just visual is normal and then just move on about your day, then that's a completely separate argument versus someone that's like, I don't know if I would do that, even if you keep that to yourself. But like at the end of the day, you're questioning it. You're questioning whether or not that interaction was equitable. And then the second thing I would add is, at some point sooner than later, I will be fully trained on how to talk about being an engaged ally or upstander. So at some point, we'll be offering the community opportunities and workshops and how to engage and work like that as well too. That keeps obviously your own individual safety in mind, of course, but at the same time show support to an individual that may have been on the receiving end of such a treatment. Do you like follow up with that individual afterwards, or like you recognize, you show some form of like solidarity with them in any way, shape, or form, being like, I hope you're okay. I witnessed that, and I would have never like, I wouldn't want that to happen to me. So even something as small as that can let somebody else recognize that, hey, not only have I been seen, not only have I like what I witnessed was uncomfortable for me, but an ally or a bystander or upstander also equally saw that. And that alone can make the overall experience and situation, and even though it may have been terrible in the beginning, like slowly soothe over time, or heal a little bit faster for the person that experienced it. So I think that was an excellent point you brought up, and I wholeheartedly agree that if there's a way for us to bring DEI training to the community at large, quite frankly, Jericho, the council might be the best way to bring DEI service to the community, but we'll talk about that afterwards.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any more comments or questions? All right, well, I would like to thank you. This was a well spent 45 minutes, and you know, we will be in touch, and we look forward to working with you in your role in the town.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Kamal.
Thank you. Jericho, I'd love to hear staying here what you have to say, but I'm going to go.
No, I got you,
That's
man. Go
okay.
on.
That's okay.
Bye-bye.
All right. All right, Jericho, if we can jump to you since we turned that around. So.
Yeah, and I always figure it's nice to let someone go ahead of me, especially because I don't really have a whole lot to report right now. We're trying to close in on final recommendations for the contract review committee. Cannabis grant for substance misuse RFPs should be coming in today and tomorrow. I've got 2 of them in, and I'm expecting 2 more to go. We are going to be offering our recommendations on that on the 3rd of March to get in front of FinCom, and then on the way to annual town meeting. And then COVID is basically flat, at least the wastewater testing. The last 3 measurements have been basically flat for 0. We do expect there's usually going to be a spike immediately after the vacations, which one is coming up in 2 weeks. And then the second to last scheduled COVID clinic through the state is going to be this Saturday, the 18th. Otherwise, just did some partnerships with Health Imperatives. They're doing a harm reduction program in-house there that should have gotten Board of Health approval today and should be going forward. It's an internally managed needle exchange and harm reduction program that is funded through the state and is ready to go pending that LBOH, sorry, local Board of Health approval. Boom, 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 boom. And that's really most of it. Does anyone have any questions for me on any town related matters outside of what I talked about?
If I can just add, with the cannabis grants, that is $175,000 that will be awarded for substance abuse and drug education programs. And there's $650,000 that will be awarded to, we had 13 applications for the General Human Services town pot of money. So those working together, there's a fair amount of support for programs that is being offered. So, all right. Thank you, Jericho. All right. Next thing is ideas for human services guests. Next month, I know that we have Jason Grizzetti coming, but if we can think about other folks that we would like to invite to have an information session like we just had, and that can be shared with the public if they're, you know, online, or that they can watch this at a later date. So if there's any suggestions, okay, Tara?
I was going to suggest possibly somebody from the Affordable Housing Trust or the Affordable Housing Group, because I would love to get an update and an understanding as to how things are working, and also their interactions and how things are also going to be working with the land bank. So.
I can reach out to Tucker on that. I know he is extremely busy, especially right around now, as they're probably the largest chunk of money to go through finance ahead of annual town meeting. So my suspicion is he is going to be difficult to secure until after town meeting, which I believe, when is it this year? Does anyone remember?
May 6th, I believe. Yeah.
In the lead up to that, I can also suggest basically any of the people we fund through the contract review committee. I would be very interested to see if you guys, so we have Addiction Solutions, which is the in-house, I say in-house, but the on-island structured medical substance abuse program. I think there's probably a fair amount of space for us to get. Did we lose somebody?
We lost Jennifer.
Oh, okay. I was trying to count the number. I was like, wait a second. And then, I think what I really am curious, I think the things that people need to hear about the most right now are kind of basic needs stuff, health imperatives. I would like to have Cape Cod, Community Action for Cape Cod and the Islands to come on as well. They have a variety of insurance advocacy programs that I think could probably deserve a little bit more attention here on the island. They came up a couple of times this week when I've been trying to help a gentleman with a health insurance claim that he's having difficulty get properly addressed. And I think that would be really useful. I think that, we should really have Amanda will hopefully be able to make it to next meeting. And I really think that the crisis update would be extremely useful for everyone on this board. Just the nuts and bolts of what's different and what you can expect from using it. I'm not going to try and summarize it at this point. I'm going to let her do it next meeting.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay. So if any, Sue, yes? Sue?
I second the motion of having, oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Having health imperatives. I think they do a lot of work in the community that a lot of people don't know about. And the idea that they're going to do harm reduction stuff is amazing. So anytime we can get them in, that would be great.
Perfect. Perfect.
And
Okay.
if you guys have suggestions or things that you want me to try and get, feel free just to email them straight to me, or you can email them to either Veronica or Athelin, and they could email them to me, whichever you feel more comfortable about.
Perfect. Perfect. On to the next, which number 7 on our agenda is a Human Services Bulletin. Athelin and I and Jericho was sort of like in on this back and forth a bit. I do think that there's an awful lot that is happening on Nantucket with our not-for-profits, their services. And our gut feeling is that not everybody knows about it. And we were looking at Jericho saying, gee, you know, like I know that Libby Gibson does a little report on the radio, you know, on what's happening in the town, that maybe we should try to get more information out there. And whether it is a 2-minute slot on the radio station on a Friday morning or on a Thursday afternoon, just trying to get more information out there. So just like to plant a seed to see if we can make this grow into something that could benefit our community. And I know, Jericho, I'm not sure if you're excited about doing it, but we're looking at you to be our voice. All right.
Well, I believe the conversation went something about me having a face for radio. So
Yes.
I like to reuse that joke as much as I possibly can. You know, I'm happy to do it. I was also thinking that it might be, so people, I don't want to bore people by I do a lot of talking. And I think it would be almost interesting, it would be equally as interesting, depending on how this flies with the town managers, to have you guys do part of it too. I think having it come from members of the community who are working with town government, you know, people were listening to me blab on and select board and board of health meetings for a good chunk of the pandemic. So I'm happy to do it if anybody else is also wanting to do it. I think having a diversity of voices speaking on this genuinely is something that can make it stand out. You know, regardless of how snazzy my cardigan is, there are other people who can talk about this sort of stuff.
Okay. All right. I saw some hands. So Suzanne?
You're
Can't hear
muted.
you. You're muted.
Sorry
Okay.
about that. Jericho has a good radio voice to turn that joke around. I don't listen to 97.7 that much, but I know that they do have spots where people go on and talk about things, get interviewed, and I would think that would be pretty easy to fit us into some kind of a, you know, a slot there to have that kind of information. I'm not volunteering, I get tongue-tied. So,
Yeah.
but
I think the only wrinkle on this project I can think of is that I don't know exactly what our agreement with NCTV and the local radio station is in terms of how much we get, how many slots we get. I can look into what the financial burden would be from my budget to do that on an ongoing basis as well.
Right.
I could also I am a member of NCTV and just a community member, but I have an in with my landlady is Lisa Getter. And I can get information about possibly doing, being interviewed on a podcast or things that are available where we could get the message out in there, or YouTube or whatever. There's all kinds of setups there for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Tara?
What about doing it like a monthly newsletter of sort of what, like, from Human Services about, what's new and now, meaning like it's a community-based edition of a newsletter that would just send out information, and you can profile, we could profile certain organizations, but also, kind of sort of actively discuss what's happened over the past month.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the idea of a mailing list, or I like the idea of a kind of continual, like an ongoing interactive communications method to keep this information going. I'm currently in the process of talking with a IT vendor that we use for our directory services, our service directory, like the human services related directory, about doing a pretty full functioned portal that would be, that I would want this kind of content to go into, a kind of combination calendar, events, and then regular updates and ongoing useful information. I think the newsletter is okay. I would rather see it be a web portal, depending on how long the process of that being developed is. I can definitely see a newsletter being a stopgap measure before that. I've been trying to keep up on some human services messaging and outreach, I guess, like news groups, communications groups, that sort of thing. The trend right now is away from email newsletters and towards persistent and interactive portals, mostly because of the amount of inbox spam, I think, that has been kicking around. The other thing is, we always have time and space in the town manager's newsletter. Florencia gets in touch with me on an ongoing basis in order to solicit content for that. If there's ever anything you guys want in the town newsletter, or you think needs to be in the town newsletter, let me know. I can probably get it into next month's meeting. And that's an ongoing offer for anything that you guys think. If there's something you can get me, or that you can explain to me well enough that I can produce 3 to 5 paragraphs on it, I will get it in there, and Florencia will be very excited for the extra content.
Okay.
Jerica, where is that newsletter? Is that sent out to people? Is it a bit? So sending things out, sending things out means you have to have a newsletter list. And to me, that excludes the inclusivity of certain parts of the population that we want to reach. And so, I mean, I do a newsletter for my business, Pathways of the Soul, for my astrology, and I have 450 people on my newsletter thing, and they read my once a month blogs and things, but they have to sign up or ask for it, and I've built that up over years. But, and granted, it's not that big of an amount of people, but I think doing this kind of thing, we want to reach more people.
Yeah, I think sort of multifaceted, whether, and here there would have to be a budget somehow for it. I'm thinking if we could put something on the TV station on Channel 18 that even, produced, I'm thinking a spotlight of, one of our nonprofits, on the radio, in the town newsletter. If we can, talk with some of our other media folks, whether it's the Current or the Inky, of having information, because one thing that I guess as part of the contract review committee that I've been sitting on for the last few months and listening to presentations, and as we've dug down into some of the questions, is certain organizations, and not through necessarily fault of their own, are not necessarily reaching our entire population. So there are some that are, you know, now going to focus on trying to reach some of different areas of our town and our population that aren't necessarily walking in and asking for services where we know that they need them. So just getting information out there as best we can and helping organizations could be a benefit. So.
And I was trying to drop the address to the town manager's newsletter in there, but does anyone have a chat box at the bottom of their thing there?
No, I don't.
No,
Let's see. I've got all these things on the sides. They just
no,
added.
there's no chat.
No
No,
chat.
there's no chat there.
So good.
That's
I'm not
unusual.
hallucinating. I'm happy I'm not blind about it. But you know, in terms of mailing lists, like we can get messaging out through the, like, I believe Libby's thing has like a fair number of people subscribe to it. So we can kind of help with the footprint on them. It'd be easier to piggyback on her than it would be to really try to start a new one up. And then I think the easiest, I mean, I want to be building a portal. I think there needs to be a kind of one-stop shop for all of the human services related things, both for people looking for resources and for things like grants, et cetera, for on the provider side. I would prefer to see whatever content we generate along these lines go someplace like that and the town newsletter with links back to the portal, rather than try and reinvent the wheel. But like I talked to Lorenzia, like we could do 3 to 5 articles a month in there. We can just have a little human services corner of the manager thing, if we can get copy to her on that.
Okay.
Tara, if there's anything that you want to get in there, or any stuff you want me to foreground, just let me know and I'll try and figure it out.
Okay.
All righty. I think that we're going on 5:20, so I think it's time that we should wrap up, but I really want to thank everyone and for today's conversations. I think that it's been a healthy, good conversation that we've started and need to keep it going. Suzanne, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I don't have the agenda in front of me, but I remember last time, I have my notes from last time. And one of the things that we spoke about was getting people more involved in brainstorming and what services are available, et cetera. And I spoke with the adult program coordinator at the library because I work there, and she said that she has some dates open in March if we wanted to do a presentation at the library open to the public about our services and what we can do and offer.
Okay.
And so like Saturday, March 18th was open, you know, in the afternoon or evening. It's, you know, a good time for people, you know, it's out of work hours.
Yeah.
But I said, just give me some ideas of when, and she said, well, you know, Saturdays are usually good. She also had a Friday night and stuff, but it was too early, I thought, to pull anything together. It was March 4th and 5th.
Right.
But is that something that we'd be interested in doing, having some kind of, and it doesn't have to be in March, we could move it off.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I would be a little bit hesitant on March 18th, just that I know that Athlon is off island and really not in touch for the next 2 weeks. And then
Oh, okay.
I know that So then that brings us up to the first week of March, and a few of us are going to be out and about also. But I think that's a great thing to maybe plan for April or May, before the summer really gets
Yeah.
And
rolling.
then Suzanne,
Yep.
I mentioned earlier, Community Action for Cape Cod and the Islands, CACCI, CACI.
Yep.
They're actually trying to do a focus group in March. I might try and connect them to your boss, because they're trying to see if they can get some public participation in a focus group.
Oh, yeah, have them
Um,
call Sammy Aguirre at the library.
Great,
Great.
perfect, perfect.
And I would say if we're interested in doing something through the council or whatever, April or May would have to be it, because then they get really busy with the book festival and
Yeah.
all of that in
Right.
June. So
Right. Okay. Great idea. Lots of good ideas today, for sure. Can I ask for unless anyone more comments, questions? Otherwise,
The irony,
have a
the
motion to,
irony here is you can make a motion to adjourn, but we do not have quorum.
Oh, so we have to stay on this call for a month.
Ever and ever. So yes, do make the motion, do the vote, but we will probably have to, for the first 15 seconds of the next meeting, be like, and now we're bringing the meeting to the previous one ending.
okay, I'll make a note of that. Okay, thank you. So motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I
Okay,
second the motion.
okay. I see Sue is muted and she may be in transit
is-
even. So,
I'm here
Suzanne?
Oh, you're here.
Oh, you're here? Okay. I,
and I vote close the meeting, yes.
okay, very good. All right, Tara,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
and Veronica, I. So good night, everyone. Thank you. Great meeting, and we'll
Night.
see you in a couple of weeks. All right.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Aye.
And